Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending another episode of Target Coding Friends and Affiliates. Today, we are excited to introduce you to American Chiropractic Billing Company and CEO Konstantin Chernukin. Welcome, Konstantin. How you doing today?
Thank you, Dr. Kotler. I'm great. My pleasure.
Good. I'm going to get right into it. The most common question we get at Target Coding is, why should a chiropractic office use a billing company instead of doing it in-house? Let's start with that one.
Yeah, fantastic question. I hear this all the time. Ultimately, these are the same benefits of outsourcing any piece of the company. It's how specialized the individual you're outsourcing to is, how scalable they are, and how scalable you need them to be, and ultimately, what problem are they solving for you? So, let me kind of dig deeper into each of those sections. American Chiropractic Billing, as the name I think suggests, specializes specifically in chiropractic billing. And as you determine how much the cost of labor is, as you determine the cost of the billing service is, you also have to think about what is the reimbursement like from the insurance company? How much money is your biller leaving on the table for the insurance to keep? And so, as you have a specialized individual responsible for your insurance billings, you end up collecting a larger portion of the reimbursement. Having someone specialized also means that your expenses might not be as high because you don't have someone spending an entire day on just a handful of claims. So our clients all the time tell us that their reimbursements have increased and their expenses have decreased despite the additional service. Sometimes a client may want to scale and take over the entire East Coast, and we can help them do that. They don't have to think about all the additional overhead and all the additional steps of scaling an additional department to go with that. They can just worry about helping patients. But for many, and I would say even for most, it's stress free. There's no training, there's no sick days, no turnover. It's just the peace of mind that everything's taken care of for you in the back end. It's all of the benefits of not having staff, um, because we take on that headache and we take care of the entire process.
Yeah, well, for me, it's an easy answer. When I get a client calling saying, Dr. Kotler, I'm constantly hiring and firing staff. Every 3, 4 months, I'm hiring a staff person and then I'm letting them go or they quit. So that's an easy one. You need to outsource. It's one of the most stressful things in a chiropractic practice, in my opinion, is hiring and firing staff members. So that's what happens when when you we use an outside company. So all right, let's go to the next question. So
Sure.
let's say somebody comes on board, they become a client of your company. Do they have to use your software? That's another question we get. Or can you just log in to their software at 2 o'clock in the morning when nobody's in the office? And if that's the answer to that is yes, do you work with all softwares? Now, ChiroTouch seems to be the king in chiropractic. So do you work with all different types of softwares companies?
Yes. So I'm going to answer this in a little bit of a roundabout way, but I'm first going to say yes, we use the client's software, but I'll give you more insight to how it works, and specifically a little bit of background on myself. I had a chiropractic practice along with a couple of partners, and we did well for ourselves. It was a strong PI practice, and our billing department, well, it became a department. And that came with its own headaches, as we discussed. When I started looking at other companies for the same billing service, I didn't find what I was looking for because um, sometimes they required you to log into a third party software where they created a second copy of all of the documentation, all of the claims, all of the payments. And so, with that, you can imagine having two copies of the same books, it can become very messy. And what happens if I ever want to part with this company, right? Am I then held hostage because I don't have all of the data inside of my EHR? And that was a big selling point for me. Um, so when we built American Chiropractic Billing, and this became something that I pursued full time, um, when we wanted to solve that problem, that was one of the cornerstones of what American chiropractic billing offers. We wanted to be able to integrate with all electronic health record systems. So our integration layer is ultimately at the same level as the clearinghouse. We use the same language as the clearinghouse, which means we can integrate with any software. For the tasks that require a person to log in, we'll log into ChiroTouch, we'll log into Eclipse, we'll log into Jane, and we'll get the tasks completed. And then our software, so that the client doesn't have to interact with any third party software, our software just reads the files that the EHRs export. So that way we can check for, let's say, various ICD-10 coding requirements by payer ID, by geographic region, things that are just far outside the scope of any human to be able to remember 1,000 line items of specific rules for a specific payer. Um, those sorts of things are automated by a computer, where we read the files, and the portion that requires just a human to look through and check for modifiers, make sure that you're sending out Medicare claims correctly, make sure that your your Cairo Touch is set up correctly to send to the correct payer ID for Medicare. A human logs in to the EHR system and takes care of that for our clients. So it makes that process very seamless to integrate with American chiropractic billing.
I like that you ran a chiropractic practice. You know, like a lot of the clients that we work with, they're like, Dr. Kotler, we like the fact that you're a chiropractor and you're also certified in coding and certified in compliance. So, you know, I can combine both specialties to make sure the doctors are doing things properly and getting paid properly. So I like that you ran a chiropractic practice first, and then you
Right.
noticed what the obstacles were to getting paid, and you decided, you know, I'm just going to start my own billing company. So now, regarding obstacles, what do you see? I mean, in what we see here is denials are coming in due to incorrect modifier, bundled codes, incorrect diagnosis codes, excludes one note. You know, these are the common denial codes, common denials we see. What do you see as a billing service?
Well, that's exactly it. And insurance companies, they're not outright malicious, but they do create a lot of rules that are hard to keep track of. So, for example, the excludes one issue that you brought up. That's the sort of thing that a computer can very easily catch at large scale, and we don't want to send out that claim. We want to make the necessary changes first. For example, if you have a acquired and a congenital diagnosis of the same condition, that may be something that an individual may not notice by glancing at the ICD-10 list, but a computer will. So if we're going to send it to the insurance company, the insurance's side of the computer will find that. So we catch that ahead of time. We try to resolve those specific issues, those specific denials ahead of time, so that we get a clean claim submitted and a clean claim paid. What kinds of issues do we most commonly see? Well, it's the mismatch between what the provider is saying they're doing on their CPT 10 or CPT code and their chart note, especially for those that do a lot of PI or workers' compensation. If, for example, you do a therapeutic exercise is a timed code, and you need to include the time component on your chart note. So if that's not included, then it's not going to be payable. And similarly, there's a lot of different rules just like that that a chiropractor not specializing in billing may simply overlook. For example, if you have a 98943 for the extra spinal adjustment, but you don't have an extra spinal diagnosis pointer, you know, you're automatically going to have a denial on your hands. And now you have to have someone call the insurance or send a corrected claim to resolve that. It's time wasted. So ultimately, the types of issues that we see are very, very preventable because they're small, nuanced rules that insurance companies have about 97140 not being reimbursable in the same anatomic region as an adjustment, about therapeutic exercise needing to be timed, about your spinal manipulations needing active therapy modifiers with Medicare. All of these things add up and they change quickly. And that's exactly what we do. We stay on top of those rules.
I'm assuming many of the, maybe some or many of the offices you work with are in network with insurance companies. And then once you're in network, there's usually a third party administrator involved. One of the largest ones is ASH, American Specialty Health. Another
Mhm.
one is Optum that works with United Healthcare. So, how do you work with those practitioners that have to submit paperwork in order to get their visits authorized? Do you do that, or you let them handle that before you get to the billing portion?
Yeah, anything that comes before the charge is placed is ultimately on the provider's side that they have to handle. But that said, once we assign a billing coordinator to their account, we want to make sure that the client is successful. And these are still things that they may not be aware of. So, even for example, TriWest requiring prior authorizations, we'll work with their front desk to make sure that they understand what M&R forms they need to file, what prior authorization forms they need to file. Even if it's something as simple as finding eligibility, is the patient eligible? All of these things combine um, into whether the claim is going to be payable or not before American chiropractic billing ever touches the bill, right? If the patient isn't eligible, you're not getting paid. If the patient doesn't have a prior authorization, you're not getting paid. And if you're not getting paid, then we're not getting paid, right? So ultimately, we want to make sure that your staff has all the tools necessary. So even though we don't handle the M&Rs and prior authorizations directly, we do work with your staff to make sure that they know how to get it done before the appointment starts.
What about verifications, insurance verification, checking on eligibility? Is that part of your services?
No, same deal. It's eligibility and benefits that occurs before we ever see the claim. So it's one step before we lay eyes on it. Ultimately, we provide all the training, and if we need to schedule a three-way call with a front desk staff to call Blue Cross Blue Shield and figure out what the benefits are and help them understand whether the 97124 is reimbursable under a chiropractor or a massage therapist, and what physical therapy is going to be covered under this plan. We will absolutely take the time to do that and make sure that they have the tools to answer these questions. But we don't offer eligibility as a service at this time.
Got it. Most don't. So it's not unusual for a billing service to not offer that. It's very time consuming. And if you had to do it, you'd probably have to charge, $500 per verification for the amount of time it takes to do it. So yes,
It is also, I think, important for the front desk to be able to discuss those sorts of benefit questions with the patient. We aren't there, obviously, so if the front desk does not have the tools to be able to discuss those questions, I think that also takes away a little bit from the patient interaction, and having kind of that informed consent going into it, having a quote going into it.
what about, do you always charge a percentage, a flat fee per claim? Do you have options regarding that?
Yeah, it's quite complex. So there's obviously a lot of options, and there's a lot of variables that go into it. Um, Different EHRs require different levels of work. Different types of cases require different levels of work. A large PI practice would be very different than a large Medicare practice, for example. So all of that goes into a calculation of how much work really goes into billing for that client.
Excellent. Well, it really sounds like you know what you're doing. So I appreciate what you're doing. Let me bring up, now, let me bring up a screen share here. So if people want to get in touch with you, the name of the company is American Chiropractic Billing. Email client at acbilling.com. Telephone number 1-888-498-5848. Is there something that you would like to offer our listeners, Constantine?
Yes, absolutely. The clients of target coding, so long as they mention that they are a client of target coding in an email or during that first initial consultation, will receive $1,000 credit on their services, and that can be applied towards anything that they choose to sign up for. The information that you've shared there will go directly to me, either the client at AC Billing or the 1888 number. That'll go directly to me, and we'll be working together on your implementation.
Excellent information. Thank you for being part of this. And hopefully you'll get some calls from non-clients too, because this is going to go out to not only clients of target coding, but non-members of target coding. So they could also get in touch with you, and I'm sure you'll take good care of them. So I want to thank you for sharing this information, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Kotler. Thank you,
You're
everybody.
welcome.